Greetings, Christview family. Jeff Clark coming at you this Wednesday, April the 15th, our tax day from the CCC campus and here within Scott's office. I couldn't help but notice that some bright yellow paint had been put on some of our curbs as I walked here up to the property this morning, as well as some paint as a safety device near our back door. So I'm sure that is a special thank you to Mr. Mark Bussey. So Mark, thank you for all that you do on our property and for so many things you do as a shepherd, including leading our food bank along with an excellent team, and certainly looking forward to being a part of that this Saturday. We're being reminded every day that the church is not brick and mortar. It is about people, living organisms, working together and sharing his or her faith and being of help to our neighbors, and certainly being a part of handing out food to needy people this coming Saturday is an important part of us being Jesus to our community. For our Wednesday class today, I want us to turn to the book of Romans. We will be in Romans chapter 13, beginning in verse 8 in just a moment. So I ask that you open up your Bibles to that particular text or your app on your phone. And as we come to that text, I want to ask you a very important question, and that is I'd like for you to think about whom in your life has been really important to you, who has been a strong encourager to you, who has had your back from time to time throughout your life. And it may be more than one person as you give thought to that. I want you just to picture that person or that small group of people in your mind and hold on to that for a moment as we go through our lesson for today. This is a person who truly wants the best for you, a person who truly believes in you. And obviously, we all need people like this in our lives. And somewhere along in our journey, we need to be those people for others. That is such an important part. We need to demonstrate this same type of support and love and encouragement in other people's lives. As we look to Romans chapter 13 and look at these verses that we've been discussing, last time we got together, I made reference to us being subject to the state and also in this particular text in Romans chapter 13, the Apostle Paul is talking about paying our taxes. And so how appropriate for today, that today is April 15th and we are to pay our taxes, although, as we all know, due to COVID-19, that tax day has been extended out 3 more months. So for the procrastinators, that's a good thing, right? So back to chapter 13, and in this text, Paul is concluding in verse 7 with pay to everyone what is due, and then he transitions to other topics of showing respect and honor to others, and now he begins in verse 8 with owe no one anything except, here's the great one, to love one another. He's changed it up here for us just a little bit. Love one another is the basic principle, as we know, of the Christian life. We, with financial obligations, some of us are very accustomed to having home mortgages and working hard to pay that off, become debt-free at some point. And Paul is contrasting this type of financial debt with the debt of love, and says that the debt of love is permanent. We never get out of it, and that's a good thing. We pay it daily, and we always owe it. And in doing so, it does offer its own dividends. Love aims at the very best for others. And when I think about that, it causes me just to pause and think about the very best for others. So with that, I'd like to read to you, and I'll be reading from the Revised Standard Version, beginning in verse 8. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this sentence: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. So as we read through that, we see Paul quoting commands from the social section of the 10 Commandments. Don't commit adultery, murder, steal, or covet. And those are the 7th, and then the 6th, and the 8th, and the 10th commandments, all taken from Exodus chapter 20. If we were together live and in person on a Wednesday night class right now, I would be asking the class, okay, we've just read 4 of those. Now, what are the other 6? And let's see how many of those we can come up with on our own. So I'll give you just a moment to mentally think about that and see how many others you can think of. So if we were to turn back to Exodus chapter 20, we would see the first one listed there is, number 1, no other gods before me. Number 2, don't make any graven images. Number 3, don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Number 4, remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Number 5, honor your father and mother. And then 6, 7, and 8, we've already read. Number 9, don't bear false witness against your neighbor. And then the last one, number 10, we've already read, don't covet. Okay, so much for our group exercise through webinar. Moving on. As you think about these laws, do laws change our hearts? And I can, through this camera, see your head shaking. No, not really. They don't, do they? They provide us some good boundaries and give us some learning opportunities, but they don't change our hearts. The boundaries we do need. And I suggest to you that our hearts truly are really pretty selfish, but can be and only changed by God's grace and the Spirit of God working through us. And I think as I look at this passage in Romans, Paul, of all people, knew this. Looking back to the passage, we see that Paul is referencing Leviticus 19:18 when he states, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And he's also echoing Jesus' words about love from the story that is told in Matthew chapter 22, beginning in verse 34, where Jesus is asked by someone in the crowd, teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? And Jesus responds with, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. When I began our class today, I asked you to consider whom in your life has always had your back. Is that a particular person or a few people? And I asked you to picture in your mind who that is, who has supported you, who has encouraged you, and deep down you know has truly, truly loved you. When you think about this person or the small group of people, is it easy to love in return? Absolutely. Of course it is. It's easy to love these people in our mind, isn't it? Now let's return to the teaching in Romans chapter 13, beginning at verse 8 through 10. The command to love one another goes merely beyond loving believers or someone whom we really like a lot. It moves beyond that. And at this point in our class, I would be reaching out to my brother James and ask him to pull up his app that has a concordance on it, and I would ask him to look up a particular word that goes by the Greek number of 2087, heteros, Heteros. So James would be providing for us in class on his app what this book does for those of you who like studying and pulling it up. You can look up a particular word, find it in Greek. It has a corresponding number. You can find it in here. You could also find the words, all the Hebrew words as well. So just good for study. And the importance of this particular word, heteros 2087, it's a meaning of one of a different kind. This is someone that is different from me and someone that is different from you. It's easy to love someone that we really have fond thoughts about and feelings about, but what about that person or people who are so different from us? those difficult to love, those that it might feel like it's impossible to love. And in Romans chapter 13, the debt of love is permanent and we never get out of it. A person who loves another will shrink from harming another person. And as we consider loving someone so different from ourselves, consider someone different in beliefs, someone different in theology. Someone's personality is totally opposite of yours, or so different in politics, different in socioeconomic status, different in mannerisms, someone different in thinking about how we should be responding to and dealing with our current COVID-19 pandemic, and on and on and on. And just think about divine love and how divine love would really be a game changer for us in our world when it's demonstrated in this kind of way, loving someone so different. And for us to do that as a group, that is changing. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Together, I challenge us to practice this biblical teaching today. In today's COVID-19 environment, practicing social distance seems to be one way of not harming our neighbor, although I know we're such social creatures and we look forward to getting back together and having interaction once again. But we must find ways to stay connected. Perhaps those few extra moments we spend with a person on a phone is one way of demonstrating our love this day, or just a multitude of other actions done with the motive of loving your neighbor as yourself. The ramifications are endless. Perhaps it's as you've thought about those people who've made a big influence on your life and might have an opportunity to reach out to that person or those people and to visit with them a little bit longer, or just that next phone call you get or you send, you spend just a little bit of extra time talking with that particular person. Thank you for your time today. Keep smiling. Hang in there. We'll get together soon.